We spend far too much time worried about what makes us different than the next person or better than the next person, and not enough time thinking about why we should respect the next person. We all have a story, an overarching theme that runs through our lives and makes us who we are. The problem is, we think that since each of our stories is different, there's not a lot of perceived value and shared struggle. But we have far more in common than we can imagine, and what motivates one person can certainly help us as well. The Third Lap podcast is about understanding, respecting, and appreciating the struggle that it takes to overcome immeasurable odds in order to reach your destiny. Join me as I interview and bond with some of the most inspiring and incredible people, diving into their why to get a full understanding of their being. Without each other, we have nothing. So let's go on this adventure together and take on the future with open minds and open hearts. Welcome to the Third Lap podcast. What's going on, everybody? Today's episode of the Third Lap podcast is a little bit different. It's going to be the same format, but I'm actually sitting next to my guest today as opposed to connecting with them across the interwebs. And so, today's guest is the one and only Louis Davis. You could guess right, it's my dad. Really excited for our episode today. Episode number 2, I was able to connect with my mom. So this episode, really excited to have Pops on. Pops, what's going on? How you feeling today?
I'm pretty good, son. Pretty good. Glad to be on.
Yeah, man. I'm excited for this conversation. And so I already went through how we know each other. I've known him my whole life.
I knew you before your life.
Right. So it's my dad. Big reason why, I am who I am. Like I explained to my wife early on, we were dating. It's like, you'll understand everything when you meet my pops. So excited to have the world get to know my dad. If you don't know him, Louis Davis Jr.
Sound like blaming on the victim to me.
Nah, we're not blaming nobody. Just, he a wild dude. So I ended up like a wild dude. It is what it is. But yeah, anything you want to add to how we know each other?
Well, we know each other because I'm your father and I've observed you, all the years. I tell people, shoot, you gave me some lessons that I didn't even know was in me until I finished talking with you. And I tell people it's hard to shut me up, and you shut me up quite a bit. But it's about learning.
Yeah, definitely. And, you've been like a spiritual advisor in a lot of situations for me. I tell people all the time, the first time I ever learned about condoms, I was 9 years old. My dad came to me and was like, Malcolm, I'm gonna teach you about prophylactic rubbers. We was riding on a trolley, matter of fact. And so, that's pretty much been my life.
That says it all.
That's pretty much been my life. But yeah, a lot of life lessons, you instilled and invested in me at an early age. And so when I started going through some of my troubles and some of my difficult times, I always had those conversations for us to reflect on. And so, I'm excited again today for us to connect. And so this is the Rep Your Hood section, Pop. So what hood you repping? Where you from?
West Philadelphia, born and raised like Will.
Yeah, man. And so talk to us about West and what were some other places that you've lived or that you've been that had an impact on your life?
Oh, man. Well, fortunately and unfortunately, almost anywhere you go, it's going to have an impact on you. Somehow, some way. It could be minor, it could be major. When I went in the service, literally every place I went had some kind of influence on me. I'm not going to say they were all good, but they impacted me. I've been to the Philippines, loved that. I've been to Japan, I've been to Thailand, I've been to Taiwan. Each place I went. See, I'm a person who likes to meet people and be involved.
Right.
Like I tried when I first was getting ready to go to the Philippines, I went to the library and got a book on, it's called Tagalog, and that's the Filipino language.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a combination of their native language and Spanish. And the deep part was, once I got there, I didn't know that they had some people called Negritos, who were supposed to be the original people.
Right.
But I had already did some other study that never said that. About them, because like I said, I knew I was going there, so I wanted to, find out about them. when I got to Thailand, or when I was in Vietnam, you know, you had what do you call these people? Oh gosh, you know how my brain is, man. I be forgetting, but the dap that, and most of the, like when you see African American males hug each other, dap, do the fist bumping and all that, that came from Vietnam.
Mm.
And sometimes it would be so long. If you went to chow, if it was 50 people in line, you literally had to give everybody some dap before you could get by then it's time for you to get back to work, you know. But it's just interesting, as I found going to different places in Japan. There was a lot of ambiguity like there is in America about African Americans. And, the good old United States, since I've been out the service, I've kind of changed my mind. I used to think the United States was the best place to be, but here lately, no, not here lately. And it's a shame about that, what one thing, and I'll say this in passing, is that one of the things, when they talk about Black Lives Matter, I wrote that book about Black Lives Matter, and the deepest thing about it is that if blacks weren't here in America, there would be a lot of inventions and stuff that wouldn't even be in existence, that are major parts of our lives.
Music, art, sports,
all kinds
science,
of things.
math. Yeah. Pretty much everything.
Yeah, everything.
Pretty much everything.
If we weren't here. And so, I've tried, regardless of the fact of how horrendous slavery was, because when you look at the numbers of that, the African Americans who died being captured, being brought here, the Middle Passage was horrendous. I mean, there's a story about where they used to have put the slaves overboard who were sick, and this, that, and the third. And the sharks are still coming to that area. And slavery ended back in, was that the 1850s or something? Yeah, when it ended, so-called ended. Right. Yeah. And the sharks are still coming there, looking for these bodies. That's how ingrained it was. That's how many people that died. For 1 million African Americans that made it here, there's anywhere from 3 to 4 million that died just to get the 1 million here. But there's a thing about strength that comes from adversity, and that's why we're so strong. And the spiritual peace and the physical peace, once we were allowed to become more educated, the educated peace. Right. I'm here lately, I've been seeing a lot of on Facebook, 14-year-olds just graduated from college. 15-year-old just graduated from college. Your aunt, she went to college when she was 16. She didn't even finish high school. She finished college before she finished high school. She was the first African American to be the queen of the basketball football game, like the homecoming queen.
Yeah,
she was the first African American homecoming. So like I said, I'm a learner. Everywhere I go, I learn. There's a word called opsomath. And that applies to me too. That's a person who really doesn't start learning and trying to learn at a later in life. Mm-hmm. And as time has gone on, the later I've gotten, the more I'm trying to learn.
I mean, it's admirable. Learning is a lifelong journey. My mom's mom, grandma, who died at 98, she was a person that was always talking about learning something new every day, even at 98 years old. And so, I've always had great examples around me of people that really just continue to learn throughout life. I would include you in that. You need to learn more about the internet. We're going to work on the computer stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm terrible.
We got to work on that stuff.
I'm so terrible.
But you've continued to accrue and gain knowledge over the years, which is awesome. And so that leads me sort of to what I want to really kind of center this conversation around, which is sort of like two pieces. I think these are two pieces that are like very foundational or fundamental in who you are. So the first around like clean and sober, why you are such an advocate for clean and sober living, what your experiences have been that kind of like led you to where you are today. And then talking about the epidemic of gun violence here in Philadelphia, and just sort of in general. But, you and I have spent the better part of the past decade having ongoing conversations around how to deal with or how to solve the epidemic or the crisis here happening in this city. And so would love to hear, your comments on both. I would say let's start with clean and sober. So just talk to us a little bit about just your experiences previously, as as open as you want to be with the people.
Okay.
But how long have you been clean and sober, and then ultimately, like, what led you to this path?
Well, I think it's what is it, 32 years now that literally by the time you were 2 years old, I stopped, and and I share this, and I always cry about it. I said, when it comes to religion, it says that God sent the Son to save us, and I, without a doubt, know that God sent the Son, which is you, to save me. I have been there for people literally all my life up until the time you were born, and it dawned on me the life that I was leading at that particular time. I wasn't going to be there for you at the rate I was going.
Right.
I've OD'd almost a couple of times, and I'm still here.
Right.
But I remember your mom one time I came in after being out all night, and she literally put you in my arms and walked out, snatched the keys out of my hand, and got in the car and drove away. And I made you a promise that I would get myself together and I'd be there for you. And that's what I've tried to do, Plus, clean and sober. And when you look at, like I said, I've been to so many different places, and everywhere you go, there's drugs. There's people who are caught up in it for various reasons. Some of it because of poverty, you name it. People have been through things and they don't want to think about it, so they drink about it. But those aren't good reasons, because they do more damage than they do good.
Right.
I just had a buddy who, killed himself not too long ago because he didn't want to go through what he was getting ready to go through in terms of cancer. Another buddy of mine, who I've been clean and sober with for years. He's just found out he's got cancer, and the likelihood they're not going to be able to do much for him. And see, some people would say, well, I'm going to drink and I'm going to drug. No, that's not the answer. That's not the answer. I did drug and alcohol counseling.
Yep.
And I tell people, man, there's no way I can go back. It's just no way. I was pulled up out of the abyss, and I'm staying out.
Right.
But I have to be the one for my own self to stay out. And about clean and sober too is that I'm really tired of this I call it argument between NA and AA. If you come to an NA place, you can't talk about AA stuff. If you come to an AA place, you can't talk about NA stuff. But when you go to a rehab or something, they're talked about together.
Right.
There's no differentiation. Why? Because you addicted. That's the commonality of it to me. And so I told you what I'm trying to do to address that. And that was shown to me, in my first, literally my first week at the rehab that I went to, and so we're talking about for 30 something years that has been on my mind. And I've just watched it grow. I've been the president of a place called 4021 here in Philadelphia. And, I've done drug and alcohol counseling for the Wedge on Broad Street, and also drug and alcohol counseling at Norristown Ministries for the homeless shelter. And that's me, look, if you need, I've made myself people's sponsors. I said, people tell me, man, he never gets, I said, come on, man, you're going to be with me. Come on, we're gonna get this together. And people have gotten it together, and I don't say they got it together because of me. You have to get it together for you.
Right.
You got to want to live. You're not just a part of the Walking Dead, and that's what a lot of people are, and they don't. Oh God, they don't. It's okay. Right now in Kensington, man, you walk to Kensington, boy, my God, it's ridiculous to see all these people nodding and literally laying in the streets. And if you go up to 69th Street, they're doing it up there too. You know what I mean? And it's just such a shame that America, which is supposed to be, one of the better societies. I got my doubts about that, but anyway, we got so many people strung out, and strung out is so other people can make money.
Right.
This opioid epidemic, that's not because people wanted to be strung out on opioids. That's because people wanted to make money.
Yeah, I was talking to JR, what up, Jay? And his boy, well, our boy Wayne. Not Wayne, Jeff. I'm stealing him from you, JR.
Yeah.
So we were talking about the opioid epidemic, and JR was talking about how Big Pharma was telling people take as many as you need, right? Like they knew the addictive abilities of opioids, but to your point, I mean, this is America. Shout out Childish Gambino. Like, this is America, right? Like, it's all about making that money. It's all about turning that maximum profit, and it's all about fuck people, yo. Like, in the end of the day, it's not about holding people down. And so when JR was explaining to me about the oxycodones, the oxycontin, and how like people was just popping them joints, like there was nothing that was gonna happen. And now you look at, where we are as a country, and like you mentioned, Kensington specifically, I think about East Harlem. Anybody that's been to 125th and Lexington, like, what it is, it's zombie land. And like, as Black and brown people, like, we talk about that shit like it's normal, right? And like, I had to explain to people that, talking to our students about the people, they would call it zombie land in front of the kids. And I had to stop somebody one day. I'm like, yo, you got to remember, like, they aunts and uncles is out there, like they moms might be out there on that strip. And so when you calling that zombie land, calling they people zombies, and so now you wonder why they don't fuck with you. Like, you got to understand what you're talking about. But yeah, we're in the midst of just upheaval and addiction in a way that is just, it's not different, right? Like, we've been in this situation where crack hit the hood, right? Like, it destroyed our hoods. Same way opioids have destroyed
took a lot of money out the hood.
Took a lot of money out the hood, took a lot of professionals out the hood, right? Created more opportunities for policing, harsher drug laws, harsher drug sentences. We made a lot of white people more powerful and more rich in that process. Meanwhile, it left our hoods in shambles. And so I just wanted to throw like that piece around what you said, that it was all about money. It's always all about money. Like, when you wonder why things happen in this country, it's always about money.
Yeah,
at the end of the day, capitalism is the most toxic shit going.
You're listening to the Third Lap Podcast with Mal Davis.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that right now we're spending $1.5 million a day. And we've been spending that for 21 years on this not war, where we keep sending 30,000 troops here and spending all this money that needs to be spent here in America.
Right.
You're spending $1.5 million a day in a situation that has nothing to do with us.
Right.
It has to do with who's getting the money.
Right.
Who's getting the money? That's what it's got to do for. And think about that. We're talking about, because I did the math, 1.5 million for 21 years. That's 365 times 21. Do the math, people. That's money that does nothing at all for us. And it's only for, it's overseas, and then we send money to all these countries and stuff. It's just a shame that everything is about money. Slavery was about money.
Listen, read Capitalism and Slavery by Eric Williams. Book changed my life, helped me understand the money component. And when people say in this country that we all fair and everybody's equal, nah, B. Like, y'all had a significant advantage when you could actually be paid for labor versus free labor.
Yeah.
There's no arguing that point. But Pop, I really wanted to continue to talk about like the clean and sober component.
But let's get to the.
And so as like someone that counsel people both professionally, but also like personally, like you said, taking people under your wing and kind of helping them get to that point where they can celebrate and take ownership of that process. What do you tell people to start? Like, I know it's a lot of people in this pandemic who probably had their addictions, made worse because they couldn't leave the house, or because they can't socialize the same way, or they lost their jobs, or they lost their business. And so, they've now devolved into a place where maybe they're trying to get right, but just don't know how to do it. And so, when you're working with people, where do you suggest they start? Like, what's a great starting place to begin that clean and sober journey?
To be honest, you got to start with the pain. Because most of the people that are doing addictions are in pain, whether they realize it or not, for whatever reason, and the desire to no longer be your own self enemy. That's really important because you are. The addiction piece, nobody's holding you down. They used to tell us nobody's holding you down and stuffing, the liquor in your mouth or the oxys or nothing. You're doing this to yourself, and you got to dig that. I tell people, I never, if you ever heard that I committed suicide, investigate that. And then I had an episode. Where I thought about, and I was sober. I was sober all these years. This was recently. But it was the first time in my life for everything I've been through, and I've been through a heck of a lot, that I said, maybe I need to just take myself on out the game. And some things happened that let me know. And one of them was, I called the VA and they asked me to come in. And when I came in, I thought about a friend of mine who was upstairs and had back surgery and nobody had really been down to see him. So I said, let me go see him first before I go take care of me. And I went, and me and him always had this relationship where I make him laugh, talk about him, everything, get him laughing, blah, blah, blah. And we did that for about a half hour, 45 minutes. And I went down to go, do what I needed to do. And I felt better. Felt better. And I remember a long time ago, they used to tell us, when you're not feeling good, go work with somebody else. Get outside of your stuff.
Right.
And that's it. You have to really, really accept the fact that you got a problem. Really, really accept the problem is mainly you. Because like I said, nobody's making you do this. You're doing it yourself. You can say, well, I do this because my wife this, and I did that because of my dad, and I did this because of my job, and I did it because, no. At this particular point now, you're doing it because of you. So the only person that can stop you is you. And I got to that point where I just couldn't take anymore. And I said, I got to go away. And I went away. And I made a promise. Here's the thing for Luke. I made a promise to myself I would never drink and drug again in life, no matter what. And I've had people, in some of my groups, people say, well, what if somebody stuck a gun in your face and told you that if you didn't drink or if you didn't do that, they would kill you? I said, well, kill me then. I said, I'd rather you kill me right now than me kill myself slowly again. I'm not going to be my own murderer. I'm sorry, because I'm about living now. Even with that thing about when I thought about, say, well, maybe I need to just step off because I'm tired. And I think, I had a buddy that just killed himself not too long ago, shot himself, and they wouldn't let his daughter in the place, and he was sober. We're our own worst enemies. It's like I said, the amazing part is we live in a land that's got all this wealth and all these possibilities and all that, but yet it's so many people thrown off on drugs, on alcohol, opioids, cocaine, what else?
Got the weed too.
Yeah, the weed. And I hate to say it, the weed is the one that is the real inconspicuous one. I remember guys who told me, oh, well, weed's okay because it was grown up in the earth. I said, well, every drug, one way or another, comes from. Oh, what are you talking about? Alcohol, that's not a drug. It's a drink. No, alcohol comes about because of a chemical reaction. But the things that started, like, you're going to ferment grapes and all that came from the earth. So what are you talking about? You just got to make up your mind that enough is enough and you want a better life.
And so when you make that decision, right, like, we've all been to that point. Everybody listening, unless you like completely sober, like my homie Vlad. What up, Vlad? Like you drank, you smoked, you did something, right? Mm-hmm. And so, okay, we make that choice. Like I'm ready. Then what? Where do you go from there?
Like I said, you listen to this. One of the biggest problems with people, period, is we can talk ourselves into stuff or we can talk ourselves out of stuff. Right. Okay. And you have to talk yourself into, I want a better life. I want a better me. Okay. You may think you're a great guy, but other people might have some ideas about that,
Right.
Because you're the last to know that you are what you are. People outside of you see it first, particularly, when you start making changes in your life, people are like, whoa, what's up with that? Why is he acting like this? How come every time you drink, you fuss and you fight and blah, 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 blah. Okay. So you have to realize that you're the biggest. Remember, I told you a long time ago, if you depend on other people to be your cheerleader, it makes you dependent. Remember, I told you, grow up and be your own best cheerleader.
Right.
Don't let other people be it for you. You be your own best cheerleader, because there's going to be times when you want to do something. Other people say, you shouldn't do that. But that's the thing you're supposed to do because you want to do it. Okay. And that's what it's about. I mean, it really, 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 truly gets down. I don't care how intelligent you are, how unintelligent you are. It really gets into your commitment to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
All right. My commitment is to Lou. Lou is never, ever going to do it again. And if I come back in another life and I know what I know now, I won't do it then either. Okay. And that's it for me. You know what I mean? I haven't really been to, since the pandemic, I really haven't been to a meeting in over a year. But guess what? I got a meeting up here in my head. You know what I mean? When something goes, when things go bad, I don't need to go get me a drink. Because I used to be, I had an anger problem, that led to some things. But I used to, if I could make it, I used to tell people, if I could make it to a drink or I could smoke me some reefer or snort me some coke, I could not do what I want to do when I'm angry.
Right.
Well, I don't have that leisure now. That's why when I first, and people need to know, when you first stop doing the drugs and doing everything, one of the things that's going to return to you is your emotions, because you don't realize that you're manipulating your emotions. If I don't feel good, let me take something. If I do feel good, let me take something, make me feel better. So that's, that's manipulating your emotions. And so when you stop, the only manipulator of the emotions is you now. You have to manipulate your own emotions. When I don't feel good, I got to think things are good. If I don't feel bad, I got to be happy about that. I ain't trying to find nothing to make me feel bad. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah. But as you can see, I'm putting it all on the person.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it could be some extenuating circumstances. Who wants to be in jail? Okay. However, if you did what you did to put yourself in jail, now if you did it wrongfully, that's a whole nother story. But if you did what you did to put yourself in jail, then you have to take it straight up, no chaser.
Right.
Straight up, no chaser. But that's mainly it. That's the biggest part of the issue. And then you definitely need positive reinforcement in terms of who you hang with.
Right.
I was following behind my old heads, not realizing that they was taking me down a path I really didn't want to go, didn't know it until I'm already in it. And I started seeing them in a different light. Cats that I thought, they was always clean and they was the gamblers and they was the hustlers and this and that. But then once I got in, I started seeing, they more fucked up than me. Right. You know what I mean? That was a revelation. Because I'm chasing behind these cats. I like the way he dressed. I like that car he got. I'm driving the Cadillac with my man driving the Cadillac. But I didn't realize it came to a point where I got to really see who he was and what he was. And that was me. So now I'm me without trying to see it in other folks. If anything, I want other folks to see it in me. This is what you want to be. You don't want to be, the hip cat, because when we was growing up, we was move and hip and all that. Well, how come all the hip people always wind up the junkies and the heavy snorters and
dead.
Yeah. If they were so hip, okay. But it's still, like I said, the individual has to make up his or her mind.
Right.
I can't do this no more. And I want to be a better person. And the one thing I do like about either fellowship is the pretension sometimes that you're there to be a better person. See, a lot of people think, well, if I just go to church or this and I go do this and that, Well, I know church people that do wrong but don't know how to apologize.
Right.
So how church are you?
Mm.
You do what I'm saying? But in the fellowships, in both fellowships, it says that if I have harmed somebody, as soon as I recognize it, I need to go make amends. That's not even in the Bible. But it's in these, it's in these fellowships that this is what you do because you're trying to be a better person. They used to say, I remember when I used to be the life of the party. Now, I don't have to be the life of the party. You know what I mean? I don't have to be to show off and all that, every time I drink. And how come every time I drink, I'm in trouble? Every time? Okay. So that's pretty much it. But like I said, I'm really just tired of the argument, whether you're an alcoholic, whether you're a drug addict, whether you're whatever, y'all all the same folks. Y'all all need to try and realize that and deal with the same solution. The only person that can make you stop is you.
Hey, so I'm really excited to announce the first ever advertiser for the Third Lap podcast. And of course, it's the homie Teddy Gandy and his team from Blacks Apparel. Blacks is a clothing company that focuses on Black reality, both past and present. They share daily Blacks or Black facts, quotes, and content regarding Black reality through their social media. So stop by the store at blacks.com, that's BLACTS.com, to check out the Blacks basic tees and all of their inventory. Blacks also uses its platform to collaborate with local artists, so keep an eye out for their limited edition tees and apparel. Make sure to use the promo code THIRDLAP for 10% off your first purchase. I mean, really, what you waiting for? Get the blacks.com, Third Lap, for 10% off your first purchase. Support the homie Teddy, support the podcast. Let's go. And so you talked to me before about like the disunity between Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous. And so talk to me a little bit about that because, part of your plan for the future is starting a clean and sober society that mixes together both of these communities that, like you said, outside of rehab centers, is very purposefully sort of split in half.
Yeah.
And so, I would love to hear just briefly like your experiences with both NA and AA, and where are some of the places that you feel like they're just not meeting people where they are to really help folks?
Well, right now, from the time I got out, which is 30-something years ago, you saw it, because it always amazed me. You're shooting heroin, which is nothing but Russian roulette. Every time you shoot up, you're taking the chance of taking yourself on out of here. So how do you think you're better than the person who drinks? Now, the drinker says, well, I'm better than all them old druggies. So what? I get drunk every day. So what? I got DUIs. So what? I know a couple of guys who have killed people under the influence of alcohol and did jail time behind it. But you think you're better than the drug addict? Come on. No, you're not. This ain't no way. And that's why I'm saying, as a clean and sober society, our desire should be for that we need a much cleaner, sober society, because it's too many people out here that's getting it on and popping. Getting it on and popping. It used to be bars before actually the advent of marijuana and then cocaine, and plus the old bathtub gin they was making up in Kensington, that we call it meth. When they start taking over, if you notice, bars start disappearing because everybody's on the drugs now. Okay, so it's just, we are the same. We I don't consider myself no different as a drug addict or no different as an alcoholic. I'm both. I unfortunately don't necessarily go to Narcotics Anonymous because I don't want to slip up and say such and such and such about the drugs. About the alcohol, and then somebody jumping on me.
And when you say jumping on you, what do you mean?
I'm talking about, we don't want a mixed message. We don't want the people in our things to have a mixed message. This is about narcotics. Well, when you read Narcotics Anonymous, it tells you that alcohol is a drug. So what are you talking about? And then when you go to AA, if you say, well, yeah, I was smoking a blunt and this and that and that and that. No, we want to know about your drinking. We want to know about that. We don't want to know about the fact that you were smoking marijuana, that you were snorting gooby. We want to know about your drinking. Well, yeah, anytime I couldn't get enough drugs, I drank. How about that?
Right.
Or how about the one where I'm doing so much drugs, I got to drink to kind of level me off? Is that what you want to hear? Because that's why it's mixed together.
Right.
You know what I mean? I had a guy when he first came in, he was talking about, yeah, blah, 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 I drink this and I do that. And every time he said it, he kept touching his nose. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, man, that's an unusual habit for just a plain drink. I'm saying it to myself while he's talking to the rest of the group. So finally he finished and I said, so anything else you want to tell us? He goes, no, that's it. I said, well, listen up. I said, I've been around drug addicts and alcoholics pretty much all my life. And I don't know any just drinker that keeps touching his nose as he talks. Is there anything else you want to share with us? And he looked at me and I looked at him. And the other people in the group are starting to laugh because they know that's how I break people down. And he said, oh, yeah, I do coke every now and then.
Every once in a while.
Yeah, every now and then. Yeah, matter of fact, so much, that's why I touch my nose all the time. And that's the only habit I know, that you touch your nose all the time is when you're doing coke, or back in the early stages when people were smoking, snorting that Monster, which was totally destroying people's nostrils. Okay. But like I said, I'm just about one society. I don't think we need two. I don't think, and the deep part, is that, NA is sort of like religion. You start off with, well, there's I guess we want Hebrew Jews, and then you got the Muslim
Christians,
and then the Christians. But y'all family,
right?
Literally, if you know your history, y'all family. So what are you talking about? Why are y'all fighting each other? And that's pretty much, with the the drinking and the drugging piece, is, I don't do the look, nah, not me. I'm Lou. I'm just an addict. Give it to me and I'll do it. Only thing I didn't do was shoot drugs. I snorted, smoked it, put it in my ear, in my nose, in my mouth. But the only thing I didn't do was shoot it.
Right.
And the only reason why I didn't shoot it because I was scared of needles. If I hadn't been scared of needles, I'd have been shooting that too. You know what I mean? People talking about, well, I just skin pop. Yeah, well, you're still addicted.
Right.
So what you trying to say?
Right.
But yeah, and anybody listening, think you got a problem, address it. That's the best thing to do with a problem. Address it. Do something about it with the thought that you're going to be a better person.
Right.
Because you might be a cool person, but every time you get high, every time you get, you do that, everybody wants to not be around you. And they'll tell you, you all right as long as you ain't drinking. Well, you all right as long as you ain't smoking. Well, they're telling you something. Something you need to hear. You're a good person. Maybe you don't think you're a good person. Matter of fact, I was standing there waiting for the bus yesterday, and this guy told me that he said, I want to die. He told me this because I recognized his, what was going on with him. And I said something to him. He was standing there, pulled his pants down on and started scratching his butt out in the open. I said, homie, do you want to go to jail? And he just kept on doing it. Just kept on doing it until he got tired or whatever.
Until he got tired.
And then he stopped. But he did say, I want to die. I want to kill myself. I said, well, apparently, at the rate you're going, that might happen. That might happen. One day you'll get so tired of yourself. And I was trying to stop when I had a play brother back when we were young. And he was always doing what we call the play suicides. Especially if he had gotten an argument with his girlfriend, he'd take some pills and then call the emergency so they come save him, kind of thing. So the final time he did it, he didn't take any pills this time. He stuck a shotgun in his mouth, put his toe on the trigger and pulled it. I never forgot that. And I was like 12 or 13. Never forgot that.
And it was like drug related or just more so like mental health?
Mental.
Yeah.
When suicide is mental.
Mind your mentals, man. That's why me and Tim is out here getting y'all to mind your mentals, because in the end of the day, you gotta mind your mentals, man. It's not a game.
Yeah, I mean, when you start thinking about committing suicide, that's gotta be mental.
Yeah.
What is it that's going on so bad in your life that you no longer want to live?
Right.
That's a hell of a thought. I'm saying to myself, man, because I'm, like, and it caught me at, old age. Shit, I'm 71 now, but this is what, a year ago? That, so, like I said, I survived so much. So, 13 years old, somebody put a gun in my face and pulled the trigger and didn't go off. And I was smoking coke so bad one time. That whole thing about beam me up, Scotty. Well, I was getting ready to go see Scotty, but something came down and made me throw my bowl on the floor of that house that I got for you, and that stopped me. That saved my life that day. So I didn't realize it was mental until one day I'm on Lindbergh Boulevard and I stopped my car because I'm so mentally distraught that I stopped my car on Lindbergh Boulevard, and people had to go around me because I couldn't drive another way. And then when I got myself together, I drove up on the parking thing over there, and all I could do was cry. That's all I could do. And I went back home and I did what I do. I smoked some more and I drank some more. It's all mental. It's all mental. Yeah, you got to mind your mentals.
That's it.
Got to mind your mentals. When I read that, when you said that with the thing, I was like, oh, I like that. I like that. Mind your mentals. I love it.
Yeah, shout outs to Tim Massaquoi, the homie, the co-host. He really is the person that coined the language for mind your mentals. So shout outs to that man for that. But it's imperative to mind your mentals. And so I appreciate the transparency and the conversation around the clean and sober. I feel like that information is really going to hit people where they are, right? Because what I love about you is that you take a non-judgmental approach to this work. I think a lot of times, and I've had to work through my own stuff around drug addiction, because like when I see a crackhead or a meth addict, like, honestly, I used to look down on them. Like, I used to feel like, you like, get out of here, bro. Like, I'm not fucking with you, because I know the type of mental time that they be on. Like, when they in that state of mind high, they'll do you any kind of way. And so whenever I see them off rip, I'm like, nah, I'm not fucking with you. But like, I had to also learn that there's a whole backstory. You helped me comprehend that. It's a whole backstory to how people get to where they are, right? That like, it's not just y'all woke up and I'm just on the crack or I'm just on the meth. That like something fucked up in your life usually happened, right? And like that led to an addiction that continued to compound over time. And so, I appreciate you. I really hope folks that are listening.
Yeah. There's another piece to that. It amazes me how many people make this statement. You chose to be a crack addict. Right. You chose to be a drinker. You chose. And I look at him and said, I don't know nobody that says I want to be a crack addict. I don't know no girl that says I want to be down on my knees on the street to do something just to get a hit. I don't choose that. But it comes. But I do believe if you work at it, you can choose not to do it. Because if you understand why you're doing it, that's the biggie. It's called, what's that? Cognitive
dissonance.
Yeah.
Knowing something is wrong, but still doing the shit.
Right.
Yeah.
But because we were doing cognitive therapy. Cognitive therapy is getting the person to realize why they're doing what they're doing.
And so I feel like that's a great segue into what I want to talk about for the next portion of this, which is really around gun violence. That's something that you and I have talked about for years at length. But I would say that like our conversation has probably increased exponentially through this pandemic, because we see pretty much every major city across the country spiking in gun violence, but the city of Philadelphia is really teetering on the edge of destruction. It has been. I mean, when I left here in '96, um, it was the same place, right? Like, same violent place, a lot of the same societal ills that held it back then, held it back when me and my wife returned here, 20 years later. And so I just want to have a chance to sort of give you this platform to talk about, your thought process towards this. What are some of the things that you plan to engage in and are actively working on that, hope to address some of this stuff that's happening here in Philly?
Well, the first thing I have to do is say that, and I started really recognizing some things, and one of them was from you.
Right.
You made a statement about, you felt less than because you weren't a thug, and I was like, whoa, what the what? What you? Because I even told her, I said, son, kid, you got it twisted. I said, because the thugs is trying to live your life, trying to be in the middle class neighborhood and do this and do that, But what I didn't realize was that, I grew up doing the gang times, but I never joined any gangs. And one of the reasons, I don't, to be honest, I fought most of them when we were coming up as kids before it got to the point. And nobody ever, honestly, nobody never, and I lived around with at least 3 major gangs. Nobody never said, Lou, we want you to be one of us. I guess because something about me, whatever. And, but now, like I said, since 98, I've been working at trying to understand the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, when I came back from the service in '73, because of the gang war stuff, I went to University of Penn. I was going to University of Penn at the time. And I went to the library and I started studying about gangs. And I found out gangs have been in existence for the longest. Okay. Why do people get in gangs, and what the gangs eventually start becoming, and blah 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 this and blah blah that. So I wrote out this paper and I gave it to my my minister, and he gave it to some people, and I know for sure one of the persons must have read it, because he did the work to sit down with the gang guys and talk with them, and they came to a peace for a minute. Now, the bad part about that is that's when Rizzo was the mayor, and Rizzo tried to take credit for the fact that the gangs had stopped. So the gang said, oh yeah, you did that. No, I don't think so. So they went back to doing what they were doing, that's a mental.
And fuck Frank Rizzo.
Yeah, that's a mental, you know what I mean? So, but now the differential is I just, after talking with a lot of people, I've talked to council people, I've talked to Republicans, Democrats. I was with a lot of the mothers whose sons have gotten killed and shot, and oh man, I've talked to guys who involved in gangs, and trying to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
The closest and the best thing that happened, I believe in the spiritual piece. And one day, I don't even remember how Edward Azar came up, but I know me being this opsomav, I looked him up, and this cat had wrote something long before what's happening here, and he wrote it about countries, and it's called communal conflict. Okay, this community is having a problem with that community, and they're fighting, and he delineates why those things are going on. And as I'm reading, I'm like, well, damn, this is what's going on in Philly with with these guys killing each other, and it just amazed me. I'm like, it's amazing that sometimes the answers are not so readily, to be seen, but somebody has done something that'll give you some clues.
Right. You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, you don't have to. No, you just try and find the right wheel. That might be the problem. You know? So, and that to me, that just put a light bulb in my head. I'm like, wow, so this is the reason. And people may not want to hear it, but it's almost like the Robin Hood syndrome. Robin Hood wasn't a bandit. Robin Hood was trying to take control of factors that were taken from him and other people like him, you know, that were poor. And when you go to any country, there's going to be poor people. There's going to be conflict for limited resources in a particular area. So, you know, it was a point when people don't even know it here in Philadelphia, there was a numbers war and there was a numbers war in Harlem, where, you know, the so-called, you know, African Americans had started it, and the Italians tried to take it over, and it was warring. And there was a war just like that here in Philadelphia, and just before, not too long just before you were born. And I know two of my friends that got killed behind it. Okay, so I'm trying not to be with so much, because, you know, I told you what, you know, what I'm waiting to hear from, and then I'll take another, you know, other steps after that. But there's an answer, and I'm going to tell people, you were the first one that articulated the answer to me. Because when I was writing out, you know, we formed a corporation called the Sons and Guns Corporation, but you were the one that said we needed to address it as a village, not just individual. You know, if you got 5 fingers on each one of your hands, you got to ball them up to be a fist, to be strong. If you try and hit something with the fingers, you're gonna break them up. There's not enough strength. And in the Bible, it talks about we are of diverse abilities, but no singular ability is the answer. It's the combination of all the abilities together. That's the answer. And that's pretty much what's going on here. Now, how we get there, if people only see gun violence as politics, there's not going to be an answer.
Right.
It's going to be, well, yeah, if we can get enough funding for this and enough funding for that, that's politics. Because it ain't all about money in that per se thing. Most people don't know that African Americans are looked at as a country in terms of how much money that goes through us, but we're not using that money for our own good. These same boys that are out, you know, selling drugs and doing this and that, if we would be more economically conscious and start it's called a social enterprise. That means no single individual gets all the money that comes into this enterprise. The money goes directly back into people. Then that's one of the solutions. Now, the other one is, so if you show a guy, well, okay, I got this job for you, but you're only going to make so and so, are they going to want it? That's another problem. Are they going to want it? I will say, earlier I said that you know, the whole thing with the cocaine and particularly crack took a lot of money out of the hood. Okay, and then people who could ran, distance themselves. Okay, and that's one of the other problems. These young kids do not have, on a consistent basis, viable examples of what to live up to. But they are living up to the examples that's right there in their faces. Right. And that's the unfortunate part about it.
You're listening to the Third Lap Podcast with Mal Davis.
Yeah. Well, you talk a lot about, like, you can only be what you see, right? And the power of representation in education. That's why there's so much talk about Black male educators and increasing Black male educator numbers. But sort of like what you mentioned with the gun violence component already, a lot of that shit is political, right? Like, it's a lot of people trying to just say the right stuff to position themselves better for whatever personal gain that they're trying to get, or like personally what they want to accomplish. You know, I've heard a lot of people talk about hiring Black men, but then at the drop of a dime, will fire a black man out of their school, out of their district without support and without really providing them a culture where they can be successful. And so I see a lot of the same thing, tongue-in-cheek conversations around gun violence, especially here in Philadelphia. I mean, the fact that like we've gone through how many mayors, how many, elected officials that represent the different wards of the city. And literally you can walk to the same places in North Philly, the same places in Southwest, Southwest, throughout this Kensington,
now,
throughout this whole city. It's the same places, bro. Like if it hasn't been fully gentrified, then they still going through the same diabolical shit that's been going on for generations.
That's right.
And so, for me, that's where I'm so dissatisfied with the city of Philadelphia's leadership, right? Why, I'm all in. I want to take a chance to shout out Dejanay Talley and Walter, who both work with my wife, and they're both heavily into advocating for better lives for our kids, right? And helping students and helping teenagers understand that there is something else out there, right? But back to what you were saying, like we can't really be what we don't see. We do need better representation. But on the flip, right, like, unfortunately, when you look at some of the small business owners that come back to the hood and open their businesses, they get shot and killed right there, right?
Yeah.
Because, niggas is hungry. Like people is hungry, people starving, and so they see you as a quick lick. Styles P, shout outs to D Block, but he had mentioned in this video he did a while ago that, he had mentioned somebody was the most victim-like. And when he said it, it resonated with me because that's how wolves really be looking at you, like you're a fool, like you the most victim-like. And so it's a catch-22, man, because when you come back and you serving in your community, think about the principals that got shot trying to de-escalate a situation. Think about the basketball coach that gets slaughtered on the court with the player, right?
My boy.
And so it's numerous instances in which people have their heart in the right place. My mom and my wife had challenged me to stop intervening the way I was in my career because I was in the trenches talking to kids that really didn't care, you know what I mean? Unfortunately. And so, when you're putting yourself in the situation, anything can happen. And so it's that catch-22. It's like, okay, you come back and you serve and you provide opportunities, but if the hood is not ready for what you provide, and the hood gonna eat you up the same way it eat everything else, that's the environment that's been created for us. And so, yeah, I just wanted to add that piece in. I think that we get away from that. I think that we victim blame and we blame the people that left, the doctors, the lawyers, the dentists, the teachers, all of these people that relocated themselves from.
But you really can't blame them.
Some of them ran because they cooning, right? Like some of them ran because they wasn't really for the people. Some people had to move because they literally wanted to raise their children in a place they could be safe.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how could you blame somebody for that, man? When you're looking at what's happening in our neighborhoods and our kids are getting slaughtered by the hour. I mean, if you want your child to survive, how would you raise them in that environment, right? Like, how are we as a community going to heal and find a place to move forward, find a way to move forward so that people don't feel the necessity to run, right? People don't feel the necessity to move away in order for them to feel safe and that they can do what they need to do. Because they know when they in the hood, they got a target on their back. But anyway, back to the gun violence, and you were talking about Azar.
Azar, like, he lays it out pretty good, even though, like I said, it's about some other country. But when you take what you're reading and you apply it to what's going on here in Philly, you see it. And one of the big reasons, and this is the one that to me is the most important, and Dr. King, Letter to a Birmingham Jail. I did a reproduction of that, and a lot of people was like, "Wow, okay," but he talked about the lack of the church. Okay, the lack of the church, stepping up and doing what they need to do. My thing is this: right now, there's such a lack of sanctity for life.
Yeah.
Okay, and I do believe that we need a civil life program. Not a civil rights, because technically we have civil rights. But what's going on right now is there is no
civility.
Right. No real thing for a civil life. And unfortunately, the only thing that I first see that I know that is woven throughout the fabric of our, African American society is religion. And what Christ said was a civil life movement. about how you should treat one another, and even in, you know, some of the 10 Commandments, don't do this and don't do that. They got the craziest one that says, because the kids used to ask me, was the word ass a bad word? And in the commandment said, do not covet thy neighbor's ass. You know, but that's, you know, that's part of that being civil.
Right.
Okay. So that's the major thing. Too many of these young people have been brought up without that sanctity for life.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know, you jumped on me, and I'm glad you did, about, you know, some of the things that get them there to where they're at. Because I hate to say it, you know, I thought, you know, my thing was
talking about that rap music.
Yeah, rap music. And what's that game?
Grand Theft Auto.
Grand Theft Auto. Yeah, them
you
two.
damn right I jumped on you.
He jumped on y'all. He jumped on me. I was like, whoa, son, don't beat me up. Wait a minute, whoa, don't beat me up. I'm just an old man.
But no, I mean, we were able to, you know, I apologize for kind of jumping at you that way. We had a great conversation over lunch to kind of just unpack it and continue to talk more. And like I told you, you know, and anybody that knows me knows that, like, I'm never gonna blame rap for the outcomes of our society. It's a byproduct of what these people are going through, right? Like, these artists, in a lot of ways, like when I hear a rapper saying, Benny the Butcher, yo, when this man's talking about he has survivor's remorse because all of his friends are dead or in jail.
And that could have been me. That's supposed to be success. Then why the fuck I feel stressed out and guilty? Damn, cause I'm paid and all my niggas in the feds or the grave. That shit killed me. That could have been me. I think about it every day. Yeah, that could have been me. That could have been me. I answer every call from jail cause that could have been me.
That's some deep shit. Rap ain't put his friends in a prison cell or into a graveyard, right? And so, you know, I think that, like, we want to tend to blame the outcome because it's easier, right? We talked about before. We like to blame the person that pulled the trigger and shot the person, but then we don't work backwards to figure out what led to that, right? Like, there's all types of instances, like, again, with the crackhead or with a meth addict, what led to that, right? Like, we see the outcome, we see the end result, which is messed up, but, like, what happened to get them to that point?
Yeah, and that's it. And like I said, you know, if anybody's listening, please look up Edward Azar. Now, but my son was cracking up because he said he found this book. This is how deep it is, right? The only thing that he found that was in a book situation cost $15,000.
Yeah, it's like 10 or 15 grand, hard copy.
Yeah,
no PDF version of, like I was telling my pops, I've never found what Azar actually wrote. I've only seen summaries of it. When I look for the PDF, I could find a PDF of anything on this planet. Never have found the PDF version of it. And I started looking for the book through different bookstores. Nobody had it. Amazon had one copy. I think it was like $12,000 for the hard copy. And so when I saw that, I was like, okay, this the truth. Like, whatever's happening in this book, whatever's happening right here with this man and his thoughts, like, this is the answer. Because if they got it fixed at a price of 12 grand, they know it make it inaccessible, right? When you can't find a PDF version of it, that means they pulled it from the internet to make it inaccessible, right? Like, if you can't find something, work harder to find that shit, because that's where the answers really are.
Man, you can find abstractions, summaries, and all that, but I forget whatever I read. I forget how I got there, and it was a while ago. But, you know, when he told me that, you know, he said, Dad, I found one thing. The only thing I found, it was like $15,000. I was like, what? that ain't what I read. You know? So, but, you know, and don't think that we're making light of it.
Not at all.
What we're trying to say is that, you know, Malcolm goes by verite. And
truth, God.
Right. And I'm always trying to find some levels of truth, you know. I'm an Aquarian, you know, and we about truth, you know. But the truth is this, that, man, you know, oftentimes a lot of what's going on in society is a man-made thing. And again, it's back to money or lack of money, or It's back to keeping people under control and or out of control. You know, when the pandemic first started, I wouldn't have been surprised if somebody said this was on purpose.
Yeah, people were saying that. I still disagree, but certainly that rumor made its rounds for sure.
It had to, because it's so much stuff. People, when I was right after I got out of the service, I found out that they were doing all these experiments on Army guys using LSD.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what? That was right after I got out of the service. They were using, experimenting on guys doing
like
LSD.
microdosing and stuff.
Yeah, and seeing how they reacted and this, that, and the third. And I'm like, wow. Sometimes people are willing to sacrifice other people to find out what they want to find out.
Oh, hell yeah. In this world, in our current society, 1,000%.
Yeah, they don't mind giving you up and me up and them up, because they not the ones going to get got.
Right.
You know what I mean? Well, how does this react on this, and how does that happen with that? Yeah, okay. But yeah, right. That's like, wow. But the real deal is this. I'm a firm believer, and like I said, I'm waiting on some results from something before I go ahead and make whatever next move. But before I leave this earth, I'm determined to at least put something, in motion to help lessen this. It's a guy named Johnson who puts out information literally every day, 2 and 3 times a day, about what's the gun violence here in Jamal Johnson, yes. And he just put out one that shows that Philadelphia is leading Chicago.
Oh yeah.
Now you're doing a lot if you're leading Chicago.
Yeah, they shooting like
in
crazy
gun
out here, man.
Yeah, in gun deaths. We're averaging slightly like, say, one and a quarter person a day.
I remember I was sitting with Troy. Shout out Troy, my older cousin OG, and we was talking one day about the difference between Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, and Camden. And he was like, see, with Chicago and with New York, he was like, people like to play tag. He was like, they'll shoot you, but it's not a lot of people dying. It's people getting hit, arms, critical, but like they bouncing back, they making it. You see in Chicago, yeah, the deaths are crazy. The number of people getting shot, though, is through the roof, right? And so,
but not everybody's getting killed.
Nah, but the killing isn't as rampant. He was like, with Philadelphia and with Camden, you shot and you killed. Like they hitting you and they dropping you here. And so, when you're seeing these large numbers of people getting shot, it usually translates to large numbers of people getting killed here. And so I'm not surprised that.
And well, here's the one where it used to be a lot of random shooting, people getting hit in the knees, legs and stuff. But for the last, I can't even put a good years on it, but for the last quite a few years, it's been headshots.
Well, yeah, and they also doing more of the walk downs instead of drive-by. So like back in, the 90s, 2000s, you getting the drive-by shootings, people driving by, hitting everybody on the corner and shit.
Everybody but who they shooting at.
Right, they miss everybody that they was trying to hit, but they hit a bunch of random civilians that ain't even in it. Now niggas walking down on you, like now they walking behind you and shooting you in the back of your head and then shooting you 3 and 4 and 5 and 10 more times in the face.
Yeah.
It's brutal, man. It's brutal, man. And the tough part and why I was so looking forward to this conversation is because this is something that you and I not only have talked about, but like have advocated for externally in different ways and to different people in different groups for years. And it was really for me, the pandemic, that like, we couldn't stop killing each other in a global pandemic.
Ain't that a blip?
If a global pandemic can't stop it, then what could stop it, right? Like, if COVID couldn't bring to a screeching halt murder in this country, then like, what is the response? What is the answer?
But see, here's the deal, though. The same way I said about addiction is the same answer. If people don't mind their mentals,
right,
okay, then they'll do certain things.
Right.
And sometimes not even giving real, no deep introspection as to why am I doing this, other than I'm doing it.
Right.
I'm doing it. And that to me is one of the major things that's going on. Unfortunately, I teach in schools, substitute teach. I've been a TSS, a STS, drug and alcohol counselor, climate control. And one of the things that I get is that as you're evolving through your childhood into, teenagers and all that, there's no critical thinking.
Mm.
But there is a lot of mimicking.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of, well, if I heard this and I heard that. Used to see the little kids all trying to do these dances that they see on what's they call TikTok and all that.
Yeah.
They do that more than they worry about their homework.
Mm-hmm.
But much less the other stuff about bang, bang, bang. You know what I mean? I don't give no great thought to I'm taking a life and dig this move. Just one life affects whatever amount of family he immediately has, mother, father, sister, brother. Then it's the cousins and the aunts and the uncles. And because I just got a friend who, her grandson was just killed, and he was getting ready to graduate from our alumni high school, West Philadelphia High, in 2 weeks. 16 years old.
Yeah, I mean, we had a couple of kids who was about to go off to college around the country playing football, got murdered at house parties. It's real, man. It goes back to what you were saying also about the civil life movement, right? Is that when our community is so full of self-hatred that like it's possible to commit these atrocious crimes against one another because we don't love ourselves, right? And like that's why when Tim and I sat down and started talking about Mind Your Mentals, and we were like, man, who's the demographic? And then we was like, man, it's some folks trapped in the hood, bro, that don't have access to this shit, that can't hear these conversations, that don't know what bipolar is, don't know what depression is, can't, readily understand and diagnose these other situations that, other folks may have the terminology to name. And then, like you said, if you name the beast, you could tame the beast. And so, we really are doing ourselves a disservice without realizing that we're doing it, right? And then, like you said, we teaching our kids. Like I see folks that barely survive gangs that turn around and then put their kids on the game, bro.
Turn their kids in there.
And now
I saw what that guy said on the thing back to you about that when you said on the Facebook.
And it's no knock on nobody, but that killed your friends, that almost killed you. You did prison time behind it. And so what is appealing to that you want to teach your child? If anything, it should be the opposite. My respect go to the homies that did all of that and then turned around and their kids never touched the streets. Their kids are straight A students. Their kids is exemplar academics and athletes. And they taught them something different. You taught me something different, right? Like you said earlier in my life that you were going to be the person that broke the cycle of terrible dads in this family. And so, society, and I'll be the first one to say, man, society has done us dirty. But at some point, we know what we're doing is wrong, but we continue to perpetuate it forward. And we got to take responsibility for that part, without a question.
And a lot of, and I hate to say it, one of the biggest problems is too many parents are condoning what they know their kids are doing.
Right.
Too many parents, and so you're not a parent then. You're an enabler. All these, it's just no way you can tell me all these shootings going on and nobody don't know who's doing it.
Like they say, the streets be talking, man. The streets be knowing, bro. The streets know.
But they ain't turning it in. Why?
Nah, they never gonna do that because it's no snitching. But on the same note, what's the streets doing to hold people accountable for shooting little children? Like, what's the streets doing? It used to be a code. Everybody talk about, oh, these kids. Hey, yo, who was supposed to teach the kids how to move, though? Right? Like, it's dudes my age. I'm 36. It's the cats my age, a little bit older, a little bit younger, that was supposed to teach them how to do this stuff correctly. How no dope on Sundays, no shooting women and children. You know what I mean? All of it used to be a quote unquote code, right? And even that code was barbaric, but it was still a code that you operate by. And so, when you don't teach anybody how to do something, they learn it on their own.
And so sometimes they learn it bad.
Listen, when you got a 12-year-old, 14-year-old, 16-year-old running around with a loaded handgun with no guidance and nobody teaching them right and wrong and nobody investing in them, nobody telling them that they love them, they're going to be out here getting it in, man. And so when we see the end result of this 16-year-old that shot somebody, what happens next?
When I was living over Southwest off of 67th and Elmwood, these little guys were throwing snowballs at me, right? So I'm laughing to myself because they're like 8, 9 years old. So I stopped and turned and looked at this one boy. What you looking at? I got the joystick. I'll shoot you. I'll kill you. And I just looked at him. I said, I done been around the world practically. And very rarely has anybody threatened me like that. Except for one time a bar on 52nd Street. Cat told me if I didn't turn around, he was going to shoot me. I said, well, I ain't turning around, so your mother's shooting me. But this is an 8 or 9-year-old kid telling me what he's going to do to me.
That's a learned behavior. He's learning that from somebody.
There you go. That's what I'm saying, man. Right. That's because we know kids mimic.
Yes,
they not inventing shit. They representing shit.
Right.
And it's just a shame that, I hold myself just as responsible as any parent. Is like, am I doing enough?
You're listening to the Third Lap Podcast with Mal Davis.
Yeah.
I make it my business to really talk to people. I was at the juvenile justice system for a minute. I was at a residential treatment facility, working there for a minute. And I talked to them. I try to let them know, man, this is not the life that you want. Right. This is a dead end, man. Really dead end. I met a 15-year-old kid, big as me. He been to the juvenile justice system place 5 times. Each time because he in possession of a gun. You know what he told me? For as big as he was, he said, "Look, I'd rather get caught with it than without it."
Yes, sir. Like that's rule number 1 if you playing by the code, man. That unfortunately, you rather do time getting caught with it than be in a casket without the jump. But that's the life. I told you before about the kid that I was working with out in the Bronx doing his high school application, and he told me very transparently that if he can't get into, if he can't bring his gun to school, he can't go to the school because the rival gang gonna catch him, and if they catch him and he can't shoot back, he dead. And that for me really, like, it sort of encapsulated urban education in a very profound way at that time in my career, because we talk math, we talk science, we talk all the ELA, we talk all of this shit to these kids, but then we take that off the table when we talk about no excuses. No excuses means that we not relating to anything happening in their community, in their homes, in real society. We just want them to unpack the children. Adults can't do it. Teachers show up and leaders show up with all types of shit to work, right? But like, we want our kids to show up with none of that outside stuff, to sit down and learn. And then when they leave the building, continue that learning despite coming from this messed up environment. And so, it's just unrealistic, man. But we've talked at length about the things happening here in the city. I'm gonna list out Azar and the Third Lap book club list to make sure that people can access the book. I actually just found it. It's like $270 now, hard copy. So I'm gonna buy it just to have it, John, because I know it's gonna go back up again.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll get our hands on it, John, because that's learning right there. Right. But Pops, so this is Mal Davis. Of course, it's the Third Lap Podcast. I'm here with Louis Davis, my dad. Really my inspirational leader in a lot of ways in regards to the spirit and helping me learn and navigate life. We just sitting here chopping it up about really first clean and sober and the importance of pursuing being clean and sober. And when you get to that point of realizing that you're doing the thing that's not helping you, moving forward, and then ultimately just talking now about the gun violence here in Philadelphia, but it's the same across the country, really across the world with Black and brown communities. We at each other's necks, and it's not sustainable. And so, Pop, I would love to hear what's your motivation, man. You as a person, you really invest in other people, and I've watched you throughout my entire life, sober at least, clean and sober, I should say, really taking time to always give a person a good word or uplift somebody's spirit, or really just be frank and straight with them, when they need that conversation. So in a lot, like, why are you how you are? Why have you approached your life and the work that you've done so far in life the way that you do?
To be honest, real honest, I think that's the mission God gave me.
Yeah.
I've been like this for a long time, I have a friend who, Missy, and she talks about touching people's lives. And, thing behind Nana, I was trying to say, well, I don't know nobody that's going to say Lou did this to them.
Right.
How can y'all say that I'm doing? I said, mostly everybody, anytime I try and be involved with somebody, it's always trying to. I had a guy who was going to a special education school, and him and I used to talk, and he said, well, why are you going to that school? He said, oh, they told me I was this and that and the third. I said, but you're not. Oh. And right after I said that, and I told you how God will send me what I need to know, somebody came and said, Lou, blah, blah, blah. And I said, yeah, I was talking to Frankie Boo. He said, well, they got a test you can take, and if you pass the test, you get out and you can go to West. So the next time, yo, Frankie, here's what you need to do, man. Take the test. He said, I said, Frankie, I'm telling you, you could do it, man. Take the test and you'll get out. Next time I saw Frankie, yo, Lou, man, I'm gonna be at West next week. I'll be there next week, Yeah. And I hate to say it, I could name innumerables throughout my life. It's been that way, especially the guys younger than me. I was always their mentor because my uncle mentored me, and older guys, would be, would say with me. And so that's pretty much been my life. I truly believe it. I talk more about, I was called to preach when I was 6 years old, and I fought it for 56 years until I decided at 62 years old to do as I was asked. Yes. But there's other situations like Atlanta, where I did what I was supposed to do. It didn't come out the way I thought it was, but that's not it. So it's just that, sort of like you, for you to ask me that question, it's almost like asking yourself, why do you do what you do? Because you feel inwardly it's the right thing to do. Right. Now, we all got our own picadillos, things that are wrong with us too. But the major thing is, I've saved at least 5 people's lives in one way or another, and that's it's just the way it is. I truly believe that God put me here to be who I am and what I am and what I was. Okay, and what I was.
And that's an important part too, to what I was.
Yeah.
And that's the third lap. That's the whole purpose of this podcast, is that we want to talk about who you are, but we want to talk about who you were too, because who you were, you had to evolve from that place to get to where you are. So, it's always important for us to not forget where we came from and who we used to be, and take ownership of that person and that past iteration of ourselves to be able to move forward in a positive and profound manner.
Yeah. And in that regard, I've led a life.
You have.
I've led a life. And a lot of people, still don't know me as that person. Right. I've tried to kill people in anger. I was involved in drugs, using, selling. But that ain't it no more. And you have to have an understanding of why it ain't it no more, because how can you talk about you bringing up your people when you're bringing them down? That just don't go together. But you got to understand why you're doing the up, because you was doing the down. Right. You know what I'm saying? I led a life because everybody around me was up there doing doing what they're doing, and I'm following behind them. But it's not that. It's not like that anymore. Like I said, I'm 71. I don't know how much longer I got left, but I know I'm gonna try and be my best about it. You know what I mean? I know if somebody come to me and say, Lou, I'm having a problem. My boy, they found out he got cancer, and the likelihood he's not gonna survive this time. And I made it my business to go see him. Right. My other boy, me and him were born on the same day, a year apart. And he decided he's going to stop trying to be sober and start drinking again. And I made it my business to go visit him. And his wife, she said, I'm so glad to see you came and do. I said, I got to. Because That's why I'm.
That's who you are.
Yeah, I got to. I said, if I don't, then I'm not me. And I know God has sent me everything that I went through to be me, not to be somebody else. You know, I'm doing like so and so. No, I'm doing like Lou. You know what I mean? I'm doing when people see me dressed all the time. Why you dressed all the time? Because that's me.
That's you.
That's me.
Sweet Lou.
Sweet Lou. Thank you, Lou.
Yeah. God. That's
Hey,
you.
look. So and that, like I said, you know, it has passed on through the gene with you. You know, and sometimes you put yourself in circumstances where maybe you might have got hurt or something, like you were talking when you're up in New York and Brooklyn and all them, but you didn't. And you know, I just hope nothing never comes down, because I hate to say it, if something happened to you, I really wonder what I would do.
I'm good, bro. I'm blessed out here, man. And you know, if I ever do get touched, man, that's God's will. Like, you know, I'm gonna only get touched in the process of pushing the movement forward for the people, man. All power to the people, man. So, you know, it is what it is. Like, that piece is what it is. You know, you can't control death, but you can control life and you can control your legacy. So, you know, if I do get knocked off, I hope that the homies keep pushing. You know, don't sabotage or sacrifice what you doing behind that, as much as lift up what my message was and keep pushing that jump forward, because people gonna get lost along the way, man. That's only a piece of it.
The real problem is what we was talking just before we got here. How many guys are doing what they're doing and really don't get the impact? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You, like you said about the boy, the guy was deaf, so he had to use sign language. So these cats shoot him, not even can't read their own sign, you know, the sign language that he was doing. They thinking he's some kind of involved in some kind of something else, and they kill him. Oh man, come on. You know, that's what I was saying about they don't have the sophistication. They just doing. There can't be no critical thinking there. Can't be, or they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. And not that they're incapable. Maybe like you said, maybe they didn't have nobody to see that, to be that. Okay, they see that somebody disrespecting you, shoot him. If you hit him in the head. You know what I mean? All that kind of stuff. You know,
money, you rob them.
Yeah. You know, don't try and do the hustle like go out and shine some shoes like we used to do, or we used to wash people's cars and take, you know, go to the store for people and all that, because that ain't but chump change. Right. How you think you 13 years old and you should be making $500 a week or something? Come on. You know, unfortunately.
Or if you do, like, there's a price coming with that. You know,
if you're making 500,
it's a price coming with that money, man.
Yeah,
something coming with that.
But then last thing, didn't you say something about it was they did a statistic once to show how people were spending, that might have been, but they spent so much time, you know, out there hustling
McDonald's,
and they was making less than people at McDonald's.
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, people continue to live under this illusion that you're making a bunch of money selling cocaine and crack and meth and pills and weed and lean. You lying. Like, the plug is selling. The plug might be getting real money, but the plug is taking like actual penitentiary chances, moving real weight. Dudes that's nickel and dime hustling on the block, you just waiting for a case, dog. Like, you know, and that's no blame on this. And I'm not saying that you wrong. That's the situation that you in. But in the end of the day, we got to stop telling these kids that like they can make a living like that, because you can't. Nobody's eating like that. If that's the case, then the whole hood would be flourishing, because everybody in the hood, swear to God, they get into this money through scamming, through hustling, through all of these means of robbing and hitting licks and running plays. But everybody broke. If you really getting it like that on the block, let me see it, bro. Because real talk, everybody broke. So somebody lying.
Yeah, and especially those that prey on old people.
Yeah, old people, the homeless.
Come on,
differently able people.
You taking their checks while they at the ATM and all that kind of stuff. Come on. You know, it's a shame. But then again, like I said, the victim is them.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. Because I was gonna say, like, okay, but then what's the jobs looking like at the schools? Every every major city in America has failing public schools in it. Every hood got failing public schools in it. Every single one. And so, we weren't educating them. We weren't giving them access, or we didn't create accessible places for mental health. We take away all the safe havens and after school programs. So now they shooting and hustling and robbing and stabbing. We don't have any real pathway for them to make money off their skills. The number of people I know in prison that could have been STEM, right? We talk about closing this STEM gap. The number of scientists and mathematicians and engineers sitting in prison right now for murder and drugs and extortion and conspiracy is astounding. It's astounding. And so, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think that's a separate conversation and podcast potentially, where we talk about like the underlying effects to what leads to these outcomes. But yeah, we tend to get a point at the end result. We point at the shooter, we point at the hustler, we point at the scammer, but we don't point nothing at those schools. We don't point nothing at these elected officials. We don't point nothing at the people that are professionally, the police, the DA, the ADA, the state's attorney.
And all of them getting paid.
All of them getting paid. That's all professional endeavors built off
all of them getting
poverty
paid.
And the criminalization of being Black and brown in this country. Hey, so I'm really excited to announce the first ever advertiser for the Third Lap podcast. And of course, it's the homie Teddy Gandy and his team from Blacks Apparel. Blacks is a clothing company that focuses on Black reality, both past and present. They share daily Blacks or Black facts, quotes, and content regarding Black reality through their social media. So stop by the store at blacks.com. That's BLACTS.com to check out the Blacks basic tees and all of their inventory. Blacks also uses its platform to collaborate with local artists, so keep an eye out for their limited edition tees and apparel. Make sure to use the promo code THIRDLAP for 10% off your first purchase. I mean, really, what you waiting for? Get the blacks.com, Third Lap, for 10% off your first purchase. Support the homie Teddy, support the podcast. Let's go. So, Pop, we get into the end of the podcast. You ran the Third Lap with the homie. I appreciate you. And so this section here is the motivational thoughts for the people. So this is like 2 to 3 minutes, but what do you want people to walk away with, remembering about your message, right? Like if this is all they hear from the podcast, what do you want them to walk away with, understanding about you and what matters to you?
Well, the big one is I was never a quitter. Don't quit. At times, life is going to challenge you. And see, the only way you can become stronger is you have to be weakened. And a lot of people they don't understand that. You know what I mean? It's sometimes you figure you got to do what you got to do.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, that's not always the case. Sometimes you do have a decision over whether you do this or you do that. I decided that there were certain things I was no longer going to do. Like I said, most people don't know I've led a heck of a life. I keep saying it. I've led a heck of a life. But there's some things I'm no longer going to do,
right, because
I know they're not beneficial. And they actually were they even beneficial to me because I didn't keep them.
Right. So,
try and be civil with people. It's a shame that I can't institute a stronger civil life movement here in Philadelphia, but I'm gonna try.
We're working on it.
I'm gonna try. Yeah. I'm gonna try. That's about it.
And civil life movement, show love campaign. It's already the slogan for the Third Lap is show love. And so be civil, man. You never know what somebody else is going through. You never know what they've been through. You never know what's happening to that person right in that moment. And like I always say, you can never go wrong being empathetic. I might not be able to completely understand what you're going through, but I could tell you that I love you, and I could tell you that at the end of the day, like you said, Pops, like as long as you don't give up and you keep pushing, you're gonna be all right. The moment you stop, the moment you quit is when all that shit sets in on you. And so show love, be civil, and continue to just love on each other, man. You can't go wrong with that.
I got this one last thing.
Mhm.
I started doing so what's it called? Sudoku.
Yeah.
Yeah. Way back about 6-7 years ago. And I started doing it because I was trying to find, I knew it was a way I wasn't thinking. So it would give me a way of thinking.
Yeah.
But now I do it because I found out you can keep getting the thing wrong. And I will keep erasing it and doing it over and erasing it and doing it over and erasing it and doing it over and erasing it and doing it over until one day, almost seemingly miraculously, I get it right. And I'm like, wow. And each time I do it, to some people they'll probably think I'm crazy, but I always say, thank you, Jesus. Because I know I don't know exactly how I got it, but I got it because of the persistence.
Yep.
I didn't give up. And then I moved to the next one. And then I moved to the next one. Same thing with this gun thing. I've been at it since 98. Can't give up now.
Yo, man, if anything has gotten worse. We can't. There's no giving up at this point. We got to keep pushing forward.
I always remember whenever things are the worst, that's when it's going to be the best coming.
Absolutely, Pop. And so at this point, we have the Third Lap Podcast book club list, which is also just a list that brings people joy, Black joy. And so what have you read? Like I said, we're going to put Azar's book up here, and I'll actually give the correct title for it because we should. And so The Management of Protracted Social Conflict, Theory and Cases from Edward E. Azar. You can cop it right now on Amazon for $270. Once I cop it, I will be actually turning this into a PDF so I can share it with the people so that I can make sure. Now, this is going to be the real test if they snatching it offline or not, because Malcolm will be PDFing it. So, Feds, you hear me talking. Yes, this piracy is happening. You already know what you can do with that. And so, but yeah, so we have Azar's book. Any of the books that you want to suggest, anything that you've been watching recently, listening to, that you think would be good for folks to check out?
Not really. Because I keep looking at House of Cards.
Okay, you like that show?
Well, you know why I like it? Because
treacherous, man.
Yeah, it keeps me mindful of how treacherous. And this thing that's going on right now with Trump, and they just got rid of the one woman because now all these, people, listen to this. This one woman is calling him on his stuff. But all the rest of these Republicans, simply because they want to win the presidency coming up, that they think it's okay for them to get rid of her because she's dividing them. And I said to myself, that's some deep stuff. Y'all got your priorities mixed up. Here's a man that incurred insurrection as a president. The president takes an oath to uphold the Constitution, and he did not. And now you're taking the person that's calling him on it and putting her out because you're worrying about who's going to win the presidency. Was it 3 years from now?
2024, yeah. They did that with a couple people. Anthony Gonzalez, who used to play wide receiver at Ohio State and for the Colts. He's a Republican in Ohio. They did the same thing to him because he spoke out against Trump. They clear a house. And I don't think that a lot of people really peep what's going on with the GOP. That if you ever needed proof that your elected officials don't care about you, just watch how they support a white supremacist that literally, like you said, incur insurrection in this country. This man literally was going to let America burn for his own ego.
For his own thing.
And yet the people that shouldn't be supporting him any longer because he got ousted as the president, as the clown that he is, are doubling and tripling down for 2024 to make another play at this. And I guarantee you, if he becomes president, he never leaves the office again unless he dies.
And the wild thing about it, all you can say is, well, we have the presidency again now. Well, you had the presidency with him, and it wasn't any good for that 4 years. So what are you talking about?
Right, it didn't do shit.
What are you talking about? That's amazing. But that's why I look at House of Cards, because it keeps that and the Good Wife.
You love that show.
Yeah,
too.
yeah, because it shows me a more of that, all that kind of treachery and backbiting and underhandedness, like I don't see it in real life, but but yeah, that's about it. That's it.
I'm gonna throw a couple out here. The first is South Side, which is incredible like comedy show. It's on HBO Max now. So folks, the next couple are gonna be on HBO Max. So if you got the Max, check them out. If you don't, my apologies. I'm not trying to be elitist and nothing like that. These are just good shows. And I pay for this silly ass app. So Southside is incredible. Season 2 is coming out soon. Shouts out to everybody already watching Southside. The Black Women Sketch Comedy Show. Season 1 is already finished. Season 2 is underway as we talk. Lots of great comedy there. Support our Black and brown artists and creatives. Astronomy Club, which is on Netflix. Dope sketch comedy show. Really, really incredible.
No, it's a comedy show.
Yeah, all of these genres are comedy.
Oh,
and then
okay.
Michael Che, who has his sketch comedy show on HBO Max as well. Really good, man. Thought-provoking, different. I'm sure there are people that aren't gonna really get into Michael Che's genre the way that it deserves it. But support our Black artists, because a lot of these shows only get into season 1. Astronomy Club got canceled. Michael Che might not be back. He might get canceled, right? Like, we're not seeing our Black art being re-upped again and shown appreciation. We win in awards and then only get in a season, and we got folks that don't look like us, of the majority complexion, that put out trash Jones that's on season 8, right? And so, support our people, man. When you see something funny, put the people onto it, right? I've been talking about Southside and Black Women Sketch Comedy and the Astronomy Club since they dropped. And so put people on, if you haven't checked these genres out already, make sure to run over there to HBO Max. Oh, and Mortal Kombat, yes, sir. That genre was live. I was really rocking with that. It's slow, but by the end, I was all in and invested, man. That was great. I was super hyped talking to my wife about it. So yeah, we hope that, between Azar's book and then the shows that we mentioned, that these bring you some joy. And so yeah, Pops, we at the end, man. Any last thoughts that you want to share with the people before we log out?
Yeah, just it said, when you know better, do better. I mean, that goes for a whole lot of stuff.
Right.
If you know better, do better. Do better, and promote civil life. Yeah. This whole thing about why do we have so many churches? We should have a more civil life. That's the best I can say. That's the best I can say. And I thank you for allowing me to come on, for the old man to come on.
Nah, man, this is a blessing, and I can't let this moment escape that, like, I was actually able to interview both my parents on my podcast. Like, that shit is amazing to me, man. This is a dream come true. Okay. And to be able to, like, conversations that you and I have had my whole life, to be able to share with the community, with the Third Lap podcast community, really is important to me. I was talking to JR about this the other day, and he was excited. He was like, I can't wait to hear your pops. He was like, yo, that man is crazy interesting to me, yo. Like, he's so smart. And like, there's so many people that know you that want to learn more about you. And I feel like, a lot of people only see Sweet Lou. A lot of people only see the drip guy, right? Like, out here fresh to death every single day. Bro, he be fresh on Sundays. Like, the man don't take a day off. He don't know about a day off. And so, I think people see that iteration of that part of you, but don't know the original, right? Don't know where you came from. They just see where you are. And so I hope that through this episode, people that listen that maybe don't know you and get a chance to know you now, or do know you and get a chance to know you better, that your story rings true, man. Because you've been one of the most honest people in my whole entire life. And so, Pop, I love you for it. I'm grateful for it. I can never say that I was one of these young Black boys that didn't grow up with a pops. You wasn't in the house, but you was always around. You was always there when I needed you. And I appreciate you for that. And I'm grateful to have you on the show today, and really excited about your episode coming out.
All right, son.
And
Thank
so, as always, man, it's the end of the show. We finished the third lap. We ran the lap. You ran it with us. We appreciate you as always. This is Mal Davis signing out. Each one, teach one. We all learn together. Make sure you have a blessed day. Thank you for tuning into another episode of the Third Lap Podcast. This is your host, Mal Davis. Please visit thethirdlappodcast.com for more information about the podcast, about our guests, and also to see our reading list. You can find us at The Third Lap Podcast on LinkedIn and Facebook, at Third Lap on Twitter, and at third_lap_podcast on Instagram. If you know anyone that would be great to be featured on this show, please reach out to our host, Mal Davis. He's always looking for interesting people to learn more about them and to talk about their pathway. Thank you so much again. Have a good one.